was 21. I was alone in my apartment one hot summer day when suddenly there was a brisk knock at my door. So I answered the door, and there was a woman who was like in her late 50s, long brown ponytail, Mickey Mouse t-shirt, and she was breathing really heavily, and her face was red, and she was leaned over with her hands on her knees, and she was like, "I'm not feeling very well. Could I get a glass of water from you?" And I was like, "Yeah, girl, come on in," because, you know, I'm an objectively intelligent person who's particularly fond of sesquipedalian prose, but I never said I was street smart. And back then my anxiety was more the like, I think I have rabies for no discernible reason kind of anxiety, rather than the everyone's a threat anxiety that I've since added into the mix. So I invite her in, and she sits at my dining room table, and I bring her a glass of water, which she promptly chugs, and I go in the kitchen to refill her glass of water, and suddenly she's right behind me. So she starts opening my cabinets, and she's looking all around my kitchen, and I'm so stunned, I'm just standing there doing absolutely nothing. So this apartment was pretty big. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment that I only paid $570 a month for, and off the kitchen there was a really long hallway that led to the bedrooms. So she starts going down the hallway, and she opens the first bedroom door, which had nothing in it because I had a dirt cheap apartment, but I didn't actually have any stuff to put in it because I had no money. So she's like, "Why don't you have any stuff in here?" And I'm like, "I just don't have any stuff." So she keeps going, and she opens the next door, which is a bathroom, and the next door, which is a closet, and she starts to open the second bedroom door, but luckily I finally snap out of it, and I'm like, "Hey, stop." So she's like, "I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to be nosy. It's just me and my son want to move into this apartment. Like, so I was just looking around." So I kind of corral her back to the dining room. She sits down, and I give her the new glass of water. And the living room and the dining room are like an L-shaped configuration. So she kind of turns in her seat and looks towards the living room, and she stares at it, like sort of confused for a minute. And suddenly she pops up out of her seat and she yells, "You don't have a TV." And I'm like, "No, I don't." And she goes, "You don't have a TV? You don't have a DVD player? You don't have a stereo? You don't have nothing?" And I'm like, "No." And she goes, "Well, what do you do for fun?" And I was like, "Well, I was just reading a Wally Lamb book I got at the library," and crying, like, "So when you leave, I'll probably go back to that." And she yells, "Well, that's stupid." And then she just leaves. She's gone. So I go back to my book, and I'm sitting on my couch, and I still just kind of think she's like a thirsty little weirdo with no ill intentions. But like an hour later, I look out my screen door, and I realize that she's standing in the parking lot with this younger man, and they're looking in windows, and they just look really sketch. And suddenly I'm like, I think I just had my joint cased. That's robber lingo. This woman was Harry in the policeman's costume. The man is Marv, and I'm the proverbial Peter McAllister. So I immediately alert the authorities, and I tell the responding officer absolutely everything. And I'm like, "Hey, make sure you jot down the part where she called me stupid, because I think that was actually a hate crime." And he like sighs really heavily, and he puts his pen down, and he's like, "Honey, why did you let a stranger into your apartment?" And I was like, "I don't know, homie, I'm just intrinsically philanthropic." And he was like, "Okay, well, like, let's not do that anymore." And I was like, I'd already gotten there on my own, yeah. So he looks around my apartment, and he's like checking my windows, and he's like, "Well, if I was a robber, this apartment would be my prime target, because you can slide these windows open really easily from the outside." And I was like, "You can?" And he was like, "Yeah." So he tells me that I need to get broomsticks and cut them to size and like fit them into the window so that way they can't be slid open from the outside. And I'm like, "Yeah, we'll definitely do that." But then an hour later, after the police officer had left, he comes back with a bunch of dowel rods and a jigsaw, and he just cut them